I didn't recognize her at first. Not because she looked different, though she did, in the way someone does when ambition burns out behind their eyes, but because I had trained myself not to look for her anymore. 5 years is a long time to forget someone who tore you in half, but not long enough to stop bleeding when you see their name printed on a sleek, backlit conference badge. Marla R. Danner, Strategic Director, Silvergate Ventures. There it was, hanging from her neck like a trophy. And there I was, standing in a corner of the Marriott ballroom next to a cheese tray I hadn't touched, trying not to hyperventilate into a branded cocktail napkin. She was surrounded by people, laughing, polished, powerful. She was everything I wasn't when she left. Everything she said I couldn't help her become. I had heard the speech like a script. Gareth, I need to grow. This job is once in a lifetime. You wouldn't understand what I'm trying to build. She was right. I didn't understand. Not back then, anyway, because I thought marriage was about building something together. I thought I was enough. I thought love could compete with a corner office and a six-figure consulting package. Spoiler, it can't. Not when your wife starts treating you like a pothole on her career path. But I'm getting off track. The point is, I wasn't supposed to be at that conference. My assistant signed me up. Said I needed to show face, build partnerships, whatever that means. I hadn't been in a room that crowded since the divorce. Most days I worked from a rented basement studio with 2 space heaters and a cracked Keurig. I'd launched a small data security platform, nothing sexy, but it kept me afloat, kept me distracted, kept me from drunk texting her when I missed the way she used to trace circles on my wrist while we watched bad TV. The funny part? My name was on the speaker list too, right below hers. I didn't even notice until I got to the registration desk and the woman behind the table said, "Oh wow, 2 Danners speaking at the same conference. You related?" I laughed. Too loud. Used to be. I mumbled, grabbing my badge like it burned. I spent the first 2 hours avoiding every hallway she might be in. I didn't even go to the opening panel. I sat in the hallway pretending to check my phone, trying not to bolt. But eventually, my slot came up. Small workshop. 40 people. Topic: surviving the cyber spiral. Security for scaling startups. Riveting stuff, right? She was in the second row. She saw me. I know because her pen slipped and fell from her hand. She didn't pick it up. She just stared. And I delivered that whole workshop like my soul was on autopilot. My mouth moved. My slides changed. But all I could see was her, still, expressionless, jaw set like someone watching their past crawl out of a grave. When I wrapped up, she didn't clap. She left. I thought that was it. End of story. Until I stepped out of the breakout room and found her waiting, alone, trembling, looking like someone who had just seen something they weren't ready for. "Gareth," she whispered. But before I could say a word, she broke. Right there, in the middle of the hallway carpet patterned with blue spirals and gold hotel logos. 5 years, and the first thing she gave me was a sob. What she told me next shattered everything I thought I knew about why she left. And it had nothing to do with her job. She cried like the hallway walls had closed in on her. I stood frozen, clutching my laptop bag like it was some kind of shield. People passed by, glancing, whispering, but no one stopped. Because who comforts a woman sobbing in front of the man she abandoned half a decade ago? "Please," she said through tears, her voice cracked, desperate, like she was chasing a moving train. "Can we talk? Not here. Just somewhere quiet." Against every survival instinct in my spine, I nodded. I don't know why. Maybe it was guilt, or curiosity, or the masochist in me that wanted to hear her say she regretted it all. Or maybe part of me, the broken part, still hoped she had some beautiful, tragic reason that would make everything make sense. We ended up in the corner of the hotel's rooftop lounge. No crowd, no noise, just the hum of distant traffic and a skyline drowning in orange dusk. I watched her rub her temples like she was trying to erase something, like the words were stuck inside her head and wouldn't come out. "I know I don't deserve to ask you anything," she finally said, "but I have to tell you something. What I said back then, about leaving for my career, it wasn't the whole truth." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean it wasn't the whole truth?" She looked at me, raw and unfiltered, like the polished corporate mask she'd worn was gone. "They gave me a condition. The company, Silvergate. When they offered me the promotion, they made it clear, no baggage, no distractions. That meant no husband. They wanted me single. They framed it as image control, like married women didn't climb the ladder the same way. I was naive. I wanted it too badly. So I agreed. I blinked at her. So you dumped me because your job told you to? Her silence was louder than any apology. She didn't deny it. She didn't try to dress it up. And honestly, that made it worse. You could have told me, I muttered. You could have just said that, instead of making me feel like I was some anchor holding you back. She flinched. I couldn't bear to admit how spineless I was. So I blamed you. That stung. Not because it was new. I'd always suspected something deeper, but because hearing her say it out loud ripped the last bit of dignity I'd been clinging to. All those nights wondering what I lacked. All those therapy sessions trying to convince myself I wasn't worthless. She made me believe I was the problem, when really, I was just an obstacle on her corporate resume. I had to see you, she said softly. When I saw your name on the program, I almost didn't come. But I couldn't resist. And now, seeing you like this, seeing how far you've come, it's killing me. Oh, so now she wanted to cry about it. 5 years too late. But then she said something that changed everything. There's more, Gareth. Something I've never told anyone. Something I didn't know how to live with. And the way her voice dropped, it wasn't regret I heard. It was fear. I leaned in. What are you talking about? She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. No address. No return label. Just my name. In her handwriting. I stared at it like it might explode. I was supposed to mail this to you 5 years ago. I took it, hesitating. My name looked unfamiliar in her handwriting now, like it belonged to someone else. Inside was a single photo, and on the back, a date. A very specific date, exactly 1 month after she left me. What is this? I asked, already dreading the answer. She looked at me with eyes red from crying, her hands trembling. That's the day I found out, she whispered. And the day I made the worst decision of my life. She stood up before I could press her. I'll tell you tomorrow. Meet me at the coffee bar downstairs at 8. I promise I'll tell you everything. Then she walked away, leaving me with a photo I didn't understand and 1,000 questions clawing at my chest. I should have walked away. I should have ignored the photo, blocked her number, gone back to my booth and pretended she never resurfaced. But I didn't, because the photo wasn't just confusing. It was terrifying. I didn't sleep that night. I must have stared at that photo for hours, flipping it over again and again like the answers were hidden in the grain of the paper. It wasn't even a remarkable picture, just a blurry shot of a woman walking out of what looked like a clinic. Her face was turned away, but her hair, her posture, God, it looked exactly like Marla. And the date scribbled on the back? 1 month after she left me. Why would she send me this? What did it mean? Was it her? Was it someone else? Was it connected to me? I paced that hotel room like a caged animal, going over every possibility I could think of. None of them made sense. And yet every scenario left me with the same pit in my stomach. Whatever secret she was hiding, it started there. By the time 7:50 rolled around, I was already downstairs at the hotel cafe, clutching a bitter coffee that had long gone cold. The place was mostly empty, save for a few conference-goers in suits talking too loud about nothing that mattered. I kept checking the door. And checking. And checking. She was late. Of course. At 8:14, she walked in. Same coat. Same tired eyes. No makeup. No armor. She slid into the booth across from me and didn't say a word at first. Just looked down at her hands like they were stained with something she couldn't scrub off. I was pregnant, she said. My brain stopped. Like, just stopped. I don't know what I expected her to say, but it wasn't that. Back then, I managed to ask, barely breathing. She nodded. I found out a few weeks after I moved to DC. I was sick. At first, I thought it was stress. Then, I took the test. I sat there, paralyzed. My thoughts were running 100 miles an hour, but crashing into each other like a 12-car pileup. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. She looked up. Because I lost it. And just like that, everything dropped out from under me. I didn't know what to do, she continued, voice trembling. I was alone, scared, and I knew I'd thrown away everything we had. I convinced myself it was better if you never knew. That way you wouldn't hate me. But I do, I said without thinking. I do hate you. The words landed hard between us. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just swallowed it. I deserve that, she said softly. But that's not the worst part. I leaned in, barely able to process the first part. There's more. She nodded, then reached into her bag and slid another envelope across the table. This one was sealed. Heavier. I didn't open it. What is it? I asked. Her voice cracked. Proof that everything you thought about me was wrong. Then she stood up. Again, like she always did when things got hard. Don't read it here, she said, backing away. Read it alone. And when you do, you'll understand why I came back. I stared at that envelope long after she disappeared into the lobby crowd. I should have tossed it, but I didn't, because part of me already knew. Whatever was inside that envelope would break me again. I didn't open the envelope right away. I carried it with me for hours like it was radioactive, tucked into my coat pocket like it might leak something toxic into my bloodstream if I looked too closely. Every time I reached for it, my fingers hesitated. What could possibly be inside that would make her show up after 5 years, cry in front of strangers, and admit to things she swore she'd buried? It wasn't until nearly midnight that I gave in. I was back in my room, sitting on the edge of the bed with the conference schedule tossed aside, and the TV playing some muted rerun in the background. I cracked the seal with shaky hands, half expecting to find a confession, maybe old ultrasound photos, maybe. I don't know. Something dramatic. But what I found made no sense at first. A copy of a hospital file. Scanned. Highlighted. Patient, Marla R. Danner. Date, August 17th, 5 years ago. Procedure, emergency dilation and curettage following incomplete miscarriage. Notes, complications noted. Unusual hormone levels. Patient advised of follow-up testing. There was a second page. Lab results. Blood work. Something about genetic markers. I didn't understand half of it. But the final line was underlined in pen. Marla's pen. I recognized the tilt of the letters. Patient advised of rare chromosomal anomaly. Future pregnancies not recommended without genetic counseling. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. I couldn't even blink. She hadn't just lost the baby. She'd lost her ability to ever try again. That's why she ran. That's why she never told me. I felt something inside me crack wide open. I thought I'd been the one abandoned, the one betrayed, the one who was left behind for some heartless career ladder. But now this? She wasn't just protecting her career. She was protecting me from a future that was already broken before it started. But even as I sat there, drowning in this new truth, something still didn't sit right. Why now? Why tell me all this now, after so much time had passed? And then I saw it, tucked inside the folder, almost hidden between the pages. A business card. Not hers. Dr. Harold Beckett, Fertility and Genetic Counseling, Silvergate Medical Partners. And on the back, scrawled in blue ink, ask him what he told me last month. Not 5 years ago. Last month. I sat straight up. This wasn't just a guilt trip. This was active, recent, still unfolding. And I was suddenly very sure of one thing. Marla didn't come here just to apologize. She came because she was scared of something. Or someone. The next morning, I found myself staring at the glass door of a private medical suite I had no business walking into. The name on the brass plaque made my stomach twist. Dr. Harold Beckett, Genetics and Fertility Specialist. I had barely slept. I kept picturing that scribbled message on the back of his business card. Ask him what he told me last month. It wasn't just a breadcrumb. It was a flare, fired in the dark. I didn't have an appointment. I didn't even have a plan. I told the receptionist I was an old patient of Dr. Beckett's and needed to clarify something urgent. She glanced at my badge from the conference, hesitated, then typed something into her system and gave me a slow nod. He's on a short break between sessions. 5 minutes, tops, she warned. The office was sleek, silent, and colder than I expected. Dr. Beckett looked nothing like I'd imagined, mid-60s, calm, a face that had seen too many breakdowns to be surprised by much. But when I mentioned Marla's name, something shifted behind his professional smile. A flicker of caution. I'm her ex-husband, I said before he could ask. We reconnected at a conference. She gave me your card. I slid it across his desk, watching his expression like a hawk. He glanced at the card, then at me, then leaned back in his chair. I see, he said. And what exactly are you looking for, Mr. Danner? She told me about the miscarriage, about what you discovered afterward, the chromosome issue, the warning about future pregnancies. He nodded. Yes, that information is in her file. It was a difficult diagnosis. I took a breath. But what about last month? She said you told her something. Something new. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I can't disclose confidential medical. She told me to ask you. I interrupted, my voice sharp and rising. She wrote it down. So spare me the policy. He paused. Then, slowly, he pulled a file from his drawer. He didn't open it, just rested his hand on top. I won't show you anything, but I will say this. Your ex-wife came to see me again recently. She had another test done, a private one, outside of Silvergate's insurance system. I felt my skin go cold. What kind of test? He hesitated, then said, paternity. The room spun. I blinked. I what? He looked at me with the same cautious pity you'd give someone standing on the edge of a ledge. Marla never told you about a man named Avery Cross, did she? No, I said immediately. The name meant nothing. Until it did. Dr. Beckett gave a tight nod. He was her boss. The man who pushed for her transfer to D.C. The one who insisted she remain unattached. I swallowed hard. My throat burned. They had an affair? She didn't tell me everything, he admitted. But when she came back last month, she said she needed to know something with certainty. She'd recently reconnected with someone from her past. Someone who'd made claims. She feared they were lies, or worse, part of something larger. And she needed to know if her medical history had been tampered with. I blinked. Tampered? He nodded, gravely. She believed she might have been misled about her condition, or even drugged during that period. And she had reason to believe Mr. Cross had something to do with it. My breath caught. All this time, I thought she left because she was chasing success. But what if she had been pushed, manipulated, threatened, lied to? And what if the miscarriage wasn't natural at all? I left that office in a daze. Nothing made sense anymore. Every assumption I'd made for 5 years was cracking. Marla hadn't just left me. She may have been running for her life. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't even know if I wanted to see her again. I just showed up outside her hotel room like a ghost that hadn't figured out how to move on. My knuckles hovered in the air before knocking, my whole body screaming at me to walk away. But then the door opened before I even touched it. She must have been expecting me. Marla didn't look surprised, just tired. She stepped aside wordlessly, letting me in, and for a moment it felt like we were back in our old apartment again. Tense air, unspoken things pressing against the walls, the kind of silence that meant something terrible had happened, but no one was ready to say it out loud. I saw Beckett, I said. She nodded. I figured you would. I pulled the business card from my pocket and tossed it on the table. He told me about Avery Cross. She winced at the name. That man destroyed me, in ways I didn't understand until it was too late. I sat down across from her, arms crossed. So what was it, Marla? An affair? Was that why you really left? She shook her head. It wasn't like that. At least, not how you think. You're going to have to be clearer than that. She looked me in the eyes for the first time that night, and I swear, there was something in her expression I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not sorrow, something closer to fear and hatred. Avery was never just my boss. He was the architect of everything. The offer, the relocation, the pressure to leave you, the NDA I signed, the diagnosis from the company clinic. What diagnosis? I asked, already knowing the answer. The miscarriage, she said. The hormone treatment they gave me before I left. I think it caused it. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought it was just the stress. But after what Beckett told me last month, I know now they gave me something. Something that would keep me compliant. I felt sick. You're saying they poisoned you? To control you? She nodded. They controlled everything. The career path, the doctors I could see, even the friends I was allowed to socialize with. It wasn't just a promotion, it was a grooming process. They were molding me into the perfect executive weapon. No attachments, no complications, no family. I stood up, pacing. My heart was racing like it was trying to break out of my chest. Why are you telling me this now? Because he's still watching me, she whispered. I froze. Who? Avery. I laughed bitterly. I thought he was just some twisted exec. He was, she said. Now he runs an entire shadow consultancy for companies that want to keep their executives optimized. That's what they call it. And I'm not the only one. There were others, women in different cities. Some of them disappeared. I stared at her like she'd gone insane. But the thing is, I believed her. Because I remembered how quickly she changed the moment she got that job. How robotic her voice became. How cold. How unlike herself she was in those final weeks. And then I remembered something else. The envelope. The photo of the woman outside the clinic. Was that you in the picture? I asked. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. That wasn't me. Then who was it? Her voice cracked. My sister. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mind couldn't even compute the sentence. My sister. It echoed like an alarm that wouldn't shut off. Your sister? I finally said, barely above a whisper. Why would you send me a photo of your sister outside a clinic? Marla sat down slowly, as if gravity had just doubled. Because she's the reason I said yes to Silvergate in the first place. The reason I left you. I stared at her, waiting for that to make sense. It didn't. She was already working for them, she continued. Before me. I didn't know it at first. They recruited her while she was still doing grad work. Psych profiling, corporate conditioning strategies, all this messed up psychological manipulation crap. She was their golden child. They offered her a future, and she took it. And then she recruited me. I sat down without realizing I had. My knees were weak. Are you saying your sister was involved in pushing you out of our marriage? Marla nodded. She said if I didn't take the offer, she would. They needed someone to fill the role, but they wanted someone already emotionally fractured. Someone with just enough motivation to be reshaped. She convinced me that I wasn't enough without that job, that we weren't enough. She fed me all the language, all the poison. And the clinic? I asked. Why was she there? Because after I lost the baby, she took over my contract. Not the job itself. She wasn't public-facing, but the internal experiments, the health monitoring, the chemical tracking, the fertility testing. She volunteered to be part of it. And by the time she wanted out, it was too late. I swallowed hard. Did she survive? Marla hesitated. She went missing 2 months ago. The room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. Marla pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of a police report. Missing adult. Name. Isla Danner. Last seen outside Silvergate's internal medical lab. She was scared, Marla whispered. The last time we spoke, she told me she discovered something. A list. A record of people who'd undergone off-the-record procedures. Hormonal tampering, psychological suppression, even sterilization. Not just women. Men too. Executives. Politicians. Investors. All done under the guise of corporate optimization. And you think I was one of them? She shook her head. Not directly, but you were collateral. Every decision I made that hurt you was because I was already under their thumb. I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd believed for years, that she left because I wasn't enough, that our marriage ended because I couldn't give her what she wanted, was unraveling in real time. But it wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was manipulation. A controlled demolition of our life, engineered by people who treated human connection as a liability. And now, I asked, my voice hoarse, what do they want from you now? Her hands trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out one final item. A flash drive. I copied the list, she said. Names. Dossiers. Everything Isla found before she vanished. I've kept it hidden, but they know someone took it. I stared at it. That tiny piece of plastic held the weight of 5 years of confusion, grief, betrayal, and now, something far more dangerous. They're coming for it, she said. And if I disappear too, you'll know why. I looked at the flash drive in her palm, and I realized I wasn't just part of her past anymore. Now I was part of whatever storm was about to hit. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't grief keeping me awake, it was purpose. 4 or 5 years I lived in the wreckage she left behind, thinking it was my fault. I blamed myself for not being enough, not being ambitious, not being able to hold on to her when the world pulled her away. And now, in the final hours of that conference, I finally understood the truth. It was never about me. Not really. I was just the casualty of a much bigger war being waged in secret, behind corporate doors, behind carefully managed smiles, behind performance reviews and optimization targets. But now I had the list, the evidence, and more than that, I had my voice back. Marla and I spent most of that morning reviewing the files. Names we recognized, names we didn't. CEO spouses marked as emotionally compromising, managers red flagged for prolonged attachment, private therapy logs flagged by third-party HR consultants. It was worse than we thought, and it had been going on for years. We made the decision together, not out of revenge, not even out of justice, really, just clarity. It was time someone told the truth. The encrypted files were sent to 3 separate journalists, anonymously. One had already covered whistleblower stories in the tech world. Another had exposed a cover-up in a pharmaceutical merger. The third, a mid-tier blog that had broken a major Silicon Valley ethics scandal 2 years earlier. We didn't attach names. Just a trail. Enough to start a fire. And then, we walked away. Marla checked out of the hotel before sunrise. She left a note, just 4 lines. I'm leaving the country for a while. You deserve peace. I hope I can earn mine too. M. I stared at those lines for a long time. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But I didn't. Because this time, it wasn't abandonment. It wasn't betrayal. It was release. I walked out of that hotel feeling lighter than I had in years. Like I'd finally closed a chapter one never thought I'd survive. 6 months later, I got an email. No subject line. No message. Just a photo. It was Marla, sitting at a beach cafe somewhere far from here. She looked healthy. Freer. Her hair was shorter. She was holding a book. Smiling. Next to her, on the table, was a small envelope with my name on it. I'll never know if she actually mailed it. I don't need to. Because I already have what I needed. Peace. And maybe, just maybe, forgiveness. There was a single red stiletto on our staircase. Just one. Left at an odd angle on the 3rd step like it had been dropped mid-fight or mid-panic. And right beside it, sitting cold and obvious on the polished wood, was her wedding ring. Not in a box. Not in a note. Just the ring. Face up. Like it was watching me. I hadn't heard the door open. I hadn't heard her come back. I didn't even hear her crying. Not until I found her, hours later, curled up on the floor of the guest bathroom with makeup streaked across her face and knees scraped like she'd fallen. But before all of that, before the unraveling, I stood there, staring at that shoe and that ring, wondering if I had just witnessed the silent funeral of our marriage. But let me rewind, just a bit, to 4 hours earlier. She left saying nothing. Literally nothing. Not a fight, not a sigh, not even a fake smile. Just slammed her coffee cup down too hard on the counter, grabbed her purse, and walked out in her green dress like the world owed her something. Like I owed her something. She didn't even take her coat, just threw a denim jacket over her shoulders like it could protect her from whatever she was really running toward. The club. That's where she was headed. I knew because her phone lit up earlier, a name I didn't recognize, with a message that said, "He's already there." He. Not they. Not the girls. Not everyone. Just he. I'd asked her once, months ago, who Micah was. She said, "Just a guy from work." Said it like I was insecure for even asking. Said it like I was being possessive for noticing that she smiled a little too brightly when she read his texts. I dropped it. Because I always drop it. Because being the understanding husband is better than being the jealous one, right? But when she walked out tonight, when she slammed that cup and left without a word, I didn't run after her. I didn't call. I watched. Watched from the upstairs window like a coward as she got into a black car with someone already in the passenger seat. She didn't look back. Just flipped her hair, laughed at something the driver said, and the car pulled away. And for the first time in our entire marriage, I didn't wait for her to come back. I didn't sit on the couch clutching my phone. I didn't warm up food. I didn't scroll through old photos wondering where things went wrong. No, I started packing. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Quietly. Deliberately. I started with the drawer she never opened, where I kept the letters she once wrote me. Then I moved to the bookshelf, the one we argued about when we moved in because I insisted on alphabetical order. Then I stopped at the fireplace. That's where I left the note. And when she returned hours later, stumbling through the front door, sobbing into her hands, barefoot with one heel missing, she didn't find me. She found the ring she'd left behind, and the words I'd finally written after staying silent too long. She didn't call out my name when she came back in. That's how I knew something was off. Dana always made noise. Kicked off her shoes, flung her keys in the dish by the door, maybe hummed a few notes of whatever pop song was still echoing in her ears from the ride home. But that night, silence. Thick, crawling silence. Like even the walls were holding their breath. I was already gone, but I knew exactly what she'd see first. Her heel abandoned on the staircase, and the ring she didn't even remember removing. I'd left them there on purpose. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. What she didn't know, and what I never intended to tell her, was that I saw her. Not just from the window. I drove. I told myself I wasn't going to, but when that car pulled away with her in it, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't chasing her, not exactly. I just needed to know if my gut was lying to me. Spoiler, it wasn't. I parked a block from the club. Didn't go in. Didn't need to. There was a VIP patio, dimly lit but exposed just enough. I watched from behind a tree like some pathetic ex in a breakup montage, and sure enough, there she was. Green dress. laughing like she hadn't laughed with me in years. And him, Micah. His hand was on her lower back. Low. Familiar. Her smile didn't protest. Her body language didn't resist. She leaned into him, not like it was their first time, but like it wasn't even a question. They kissed. Just once. Just long enough for the truth to lodge in my throat like a dry pill I couldn't swallow. I didn't take pictures. I didn't record video. What was the point? This wasn't court. This was a funeral. Our wedding ring was a casket, and I was the one burying it. I drove home in silence. Not a single tear. Not one. Which was weird because I'm the emotional one between us. I cry during movie trailers. I tear up when I see old couples holding hands in the park. But this? It hollowed me out. Like I was watching someone else's life end, and I just happened to be standing in the ruins. Back home, I didn't smash anything. Didn't throw her clothes in bags or burn old photos like some TikTok revenge fantasy. I just packed the important things. A few clothes. My passport. The laptop I bought before she made me switch to joint finances. Then I sat down and wrote the note. Not for her to cry over. Not to manipulate her. Just so she'd know I didn't vanish without understanding exactly what had happened. Then I left her the ring. She left me with silence. So I gave it back to her. And now? Now I'm here, in a short-term rental 2 towns over, writing this while the heater rattles behind me and my phone keeps lighting up with messages I won't answer. The truth? I don't even know if she regrets it yet. But I know this. The moment she saw that stiletto and that ring and realized I didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't beg, that's when the real panic started. I should have turned my phone off. I thought about it. Actually hovered my thumb over the power button, but something in me needed to see her panic. Not out of spite. Not revenge. Just confirmation. Proof that, even for a second, she understood what she broke. The first call came at 3:42 a.m. I didn't answer. The second followed 30 seconds later. Still didn't pick up. Then the texts came, back to back like rapid fire. Where are you? Why did you leave your things? Troy, this isn't funny. Talk to me. Did you see something? That last one. That told me everything. She knew. Maybe not when she first walked in. Maybe not when she saw the ring and the shoe. But something in that moment, in that awful quiet house without my keys on the counter or my phone charging in its usual spot, it clicked. And now she was spiraling. I watched the bubbles pop up as she typed more. Then disappear. Then start again. Then vanish. Over and over, like she couldn't figure out what version of the truth might keep me from walking out forever. But it was already too late. I lay on the mattress of the rental, barely even a bed. More like a couch someone flattened and pretended was enough for a person to sleep on. I stared at the ceiling and let the phone buzz in my hand. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this heavy ache in my chest, the kind that doesn't explode, it just hums. Constant. Low. Devastating. She called again at 3:51. Then 3:58. Then 4:04. 7 missed calls by the time I got up and turned on the faucet just to drown out the vibrating. Then a text came through that froze me. I didn't sleep with him. It sat there on the screen like a dare. No apology. No ownership. Just that one sentence, like she'd reverse-engineered it from 1,000 Reddit threads where women try to spin the moment back in their favor. But the thing is, I never said she slept with him. I never accused. Never shouted. Never even confronted her when she left. I just saw what I saw and left with my silence. And now she was scrambling to defend what I hadn't even voiced. Which told me she had. Or was about to. Or planned to. Or already had, long before I ever looked through that window. At 4:13, she left a voicemail. I didn't listen. But I saved it. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I needed to know I could. Maybe because a part of me, the very last remaining part that still believed in her, or at least believed in the version of her I married, wanted to hear her break. To hear if she cried. If she whispered my name like she used to when we were still in love. But I didn't listen. Not yet. Instead, I turned the phone face down, got up from the mattress, and went to make coffee in a stranger's kitchen that now felt more like home than the place I'd spent the last 7 years in. And that was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the silence that followed. Because sometimes, it's not the cheating that breaks you. It's how easily they go back to pretending they didn't. I cracked. Around 5:12 a.m., while the sky outside turned from navy to bruised purple, I finally gave in. The voicemail had just been sitting there, taunting me, like it knew I didn't have the spine to ignore her forever. I sat on the edge of the couch bed, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, and hit play. Her voice came through shaky, not like crying, more like she didn't know who she was supposed to be in that moment. Troy, please don't do this. I don't know what you think you saw, but it's not what it looked like. I just needed a night out, and yes, Micah was there, but it wasn't. She paused. A breath. Then her voice dropped to something small, like a version of herself I hadn't heard in months. Please come home. We can talk. Please. I'm scared. She was scared. That was Rich. For the past year, I'd been the one walking on eggshells. The one trying not to say the wrong thing, ask too much, notice too much. The one who swallowed doubt like medicine, even when it burned going down. But now that the mirror cracked, now that I stepped out of the script and broke the pattern, she was scared. It should have made me feel powerful, or at least justified. But it didn't. It made me feel sick. I tossed the phone on the mattress and went to the window. It faced an alley and a dumpster. And yet somehow the view felt more honest than the ones from our old bedroom, where she hung those overpriced curtains and always insisted on turning the blinds a certain way, as if controlling the sunlight could fix everything else. She texted again while I stood there. This time, it wasn't a lie. It was a photo, a blurry, poorly lit picture of her hand holding the ring. The same ring she'd left beside the stiletto like a dropped lie. Now it was back on her palm, and underneath it, a caption. I didn't mean to leave it like that. She didn't mean to. Of course she didn't. Just like she didn't mean to drift away from me. Just like she didn't mean to start dressing up for someone else, or to spend nights laughing into her phone while I cooked dinner alone. Everything was always an accident with Dana. A misunderstanding. A misread situation. A heat-of-the-moment thing. Never a choice. Except it was. It always was. She chose him. Maybe not explicitly, maybe not in words, but in energy, in effort, in excitement, in the way she smiled when she talked about him, in the way she stopped smiling when she talked to me. I stared at that photo on my screen until my coffee went cold, and then I remembered something. Before she left that night, before the slammed mug, before the door, I'd asked her one simple question while she was getting ready. It wasn't a demand, just a gentle, hopeful ask. Would you want to go out with me next Friday? That place by the river, you said you liked it. She hadn't even turned around, just stared into the mirror, adjusting her earrings, and said, "We'll see. We'll see." Those two words echoed now louder than any voicemail. Because even then, she'd already chosen not to come back. I just didn't know it yet. It was 7:09 a.m. when the knock came. Not a loud, angry bang. Not a subtle, gentle tap. Just 3 solid knocks, spaced too evenly, like she'd rehearsed them in her head on the way over. I didn't move at first. I just sat there on the edge of the rental's saggy couch bed, staring at the front door like it might explode. I already knew it was her. No one else knew where I was. I hadn't told a single soul. But I also knew Dana. She'd find a way. She always did when the control started slipping. And now she was desperate to wrest it back. The knock came again, softer this time. Troy. Her voice was muffled through the door. Can we talk? There was a pause. Then, please. I'm not going to yell. I just need to explain. Explain what? That she went out with Micah again? That she wore a dress she used to save for our anniversary dinners. Not to impress me, but some coworker who probably didn't even care if she wore a ring or not. I opened the door, but not fully. Just enough for her to see I was there. Her eyes were swollen. Red. I couldn't tell if it was from crying all night or not sleeping at all. She looked wrecked, mascara smudged, hair pulled back like she didn't know what to do with it. But still in that green dress. She hadn't even changed. Why are you here? I asked, my voice low. Not cold. Just empty. She flinched like I slapped her. You didn't answer your phone. You just left. I thought something happened. I wanted to laugh. Something did happen. The last piece of trust one had for her got pulled out from under me like a tablecloth in one of those magician tricks. Except everything did fall. The wine glasses shattered. The plates broke. And there was no applause at the end. I saw you, I said quietly. At the club. On the patio. Her face paled instantly. No denial. No confusion. Just a frozen look of someone whose secrets finally stopped running faster than the truth. Troy. I didn't sleep with him, she said again, but this time it wasn't text. It was her voice, trembling in real time. I swear. I was just confused. I was angry. You and I haven't been. Don't. I cut in. Don't make this about us. This was about you. You chose to go there. You chose to meet him. You chose to let him put his hand on you. You chose to kiss him back. Silence. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Not to let her in, but to make sure she didn't come further. She looked at me, searching for something. Maybe the version of me she thought would fall apart. The version who would still beg, or forgive, or cling to some hope that she hadn't completely torched what we built. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had stood still for too long, and now the ground was moving beneath me. And finally, I was willing to move with it. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. That's the problem, Dana, I said. You didn't mean anything at all. She opened her mouth like she had more to say, but no words came out. Just this weak exhale, like whatever script she had memorized fell apart the moment she realized I wasn't stepping backward. I stepped past her, walked right by her down the sidewalk. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. Her head turned slightly, like she didn't know if she should follow or fall to the ground. I didn't look back, because I finally understood something. The version of me she betrayed? He didn't exist anymore, and she had no idea who she was dealing with now. I didn't plan on going anywhere in particular. I just needed to move. My legs felt too heavy inside that rental, like grief had weighed and it had settled in my joints. So I walked, past the laundromat that smelled like burnt lint, past the diner where a waitress was already wiping down tables for breakfast. The cold morning air didn't wake me up. It just reminded me I hadn't actually slept. Somewhere behind me, I heard the soft crunch of her heels on gravel. She was following me, not calling my name, just trailing like someone who didn't know what else to do but couldn't bear to go home alone. I stopped at the corner of the parking lot behind the building, near the dumpsters where the cigarette butts collect like confessions. I turned around slowly, and there she was, arms wrapped around herself, shoulders trembling even though it wasn't that cold. She looked so small, smaller than I remembered, and for a split second, I wondered how many times she'd walked away from me emotionally before I ever noticed the first step. I didn't know you saw us, she said finally, her voice paper thin. You keep saying that like it matters. I didn't sleep with him. Stop saying that. I snapped louder than I intended. This isn't about sex, Dana. It's about the fact that you emotionally left me months ago and hoped I'd be too numb to notice. She blinked fast, tears gathering again. I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. I felt like a shell in our house. You never touched me. You never looked at me the same. And you never said a word. I interrupted. You let resentment pile up like laundry you refused to fold, and instead of talking to me, you smiled at someone else. You chose silence until the night you decided you'd rather cry in a club bathroom than sit next to me on the couch. She wiped her face, angry now. I cried because I knew I was making a mistake. No, you cried because I caught you making it. The silence between us stretched thin, brittle like glass. I could see it in her face, the panic, the realization, the helplessness of a person who never imagined the other person might actually leave. She thought I'd yell, cry, rage, sleep in the car maybe. But not this. Not a calm, quiet exit. Not a man who had nothing left to bargain with. She stepped closer. Let's go home. Please. Let's talk like adults. Let's figure this out. I didn't move. You don't get to use the word home like it means something anymore. She flinched, but I wasn't done. You know what I was doing the night you went to meet him? I wasn't tracking you, Dana. I wasn't plotting. I was in the kitchen reheating leftovers, thinking about how to tell you I was ready to try counseling. I'd even looked up names. I thought maybe we could fix it. Her hand covered her mouth. And while I was doing that, I continued. You were outside laughing with someone who didn't love you. Someone who just liked that you were broken. She didn't deny it. This time, she didn't even try. No more excuses. No more half-lies wrapped in self-pity. Just her standing in a cracked parking lot behind a stranger's apartment, looking at the man she thought would always stay. But I didn't. And I wouldn't. Because something finally broke inside me in the best way possible. Not my heart. My habit of forgiving people just because they cried. She followed me all the way back to the rental. Didn't say another word. Just walked behind me like a shadow that couldn't quite catch up. When I reached the door, I didn't invite her in. I didn't need another scene. I didn't want her sitting on some stranger's couch pretending we could just rewind this disaster like it was a sitcom argument with a happy ending queued up in the script. She stood there in the doorway anyway, like a kid who didn't know if she was grounded or forgiven. Then finally, she said it. I'm sorry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just those two pathetic words, soaked in whatever version of regret she could muster. But it didn't land. It didn't move anything in me. Because apologies that come only after the consequences aren't real. They're survival tactics. And I wasn't interested in helping her survive what she broke. I turned my back to her and sat down, my back facing the door, letting the silence hang heavy again. I half hoped she'd take the hint and walk away. But she didn't. Of course not. I kept telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, she said from the threshold. I needed attention, Troy. I needed to feel like I mattered again. And you didn't think maybe your husband could have helped with that? I asked without looking at her. I didn't think you wanted me anymore. You were always tired, distracted, barely touched me. I stood then, slowly, because I wanted her to see my face when I said it. You stopped being someone I could touch the second you stopped being emotionally present. You want to know why I was tired, Dana? Because I was carrying the weight of two people pretending everything was fine. She stepped inside now, slowly, like she was testing how far she could push. Troy, I didn't plan for this to happen. You keep saying that like it matters. She blinked. You didn't plan it, sure. But you also didn't stop it. You let it build. You nurtured it. You dressed up for it. You left your ring for it. That wasn't a mistake, Dana. That was a strategy. The way her face crumpled. God, I almost felt something. I almost felt pity. But then I remembered every Thursday she came home late without explanation, every cold shoulder she gave me in bed, every fake laugh when I tried to suggest a weekend away, just the two of us. She didn't want to heal. She wanted to escape. But now that she'd burned the bridge, she wanted to run back across the ashes. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. You already did. She stepped forward again, but I shook my head. This isn't a test. This isn't a punishment. This is me finally realizing I deserve a love that doesn't have to be doubted every night. She swallowed hard. What are you saying? I'm saying we're done. There. I'd said it. Not screamed it. Not thrown it. Just placed it between us like a clean knife on the table. And it cut deep. Her lip trembled, her shoulders dropped, and I swear, for the first time in years, she looked small in a way that no amount of makeup or tight dresses or attention could fix. She turned slowly, walked to the door, but right before she stepped out, she looked back at me one last time, and she said, "You'll never find someone who loved you the way I did." And I replied, without blinking, "I really hope not." She left, and I didn't close the door after her. I let the cold air in, because for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. I didn't move for a while after she left. I just stood there in the open doorway, letting the cold morning breeze wrap around me like a reset. The apartment was still, quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in years. No passive-aggressive sighs from the other room. No low-volume phone calls she'd pretend I couldn't hear. Just peace. For the first time in forever, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't rehearsing conversations in my head. I wasn't bracing for distance disguised as politeness. The weight I'd been dragging for years, trying to fix something she'd already walked away from emotionally, was finally off my shoulders. I sat down and let that realization settle in. Later that morning, I packed my things again. Not to run this time, but to move forward. I didn't go back to our house. I contacted a friend from college, Mason, who ran a small graphic design firm 3 hours away. He'd offered me a job a year ago, but I said no because Dana wouldn't want to leave the city. This time, I called him back. His response was short. "You start Monday. Let's get you out of that mess." And I did. 3 days later, I signed a lease on a small apartment above a bookstore in a town I'd never really explored. I traded the silence of disappointment for the kind that comes with clean slates. I didn't hear from Dana again. Not right away. She sent a few texts, sure. Something about closure, something about how she still loved me, but I didn't answer. Because love that's only spoken after betrayal isn't love. It's regret. And regret doesn't build anything. It's been 6 months now. I'm not going to sit here and say it was all easy. Healing is messy. Some nights I still catch myself scrolling through old photos, wondering if it was ever really real. But here's the thing. I'm laughing again. I'm sleeping. I wake up excited about my day. I joined a cycling group. I started painting again, badly, but it makes me feel alive. I even caught myself humming in the kitchen last week while making breakfast. Last month, I met someone. Her name's Brenna. She's nothing like Dana, and that's exactly why I noticed her. She doesn't play games. She talks with her whole heart, even when it's hard. We're not rushing anything, just coffee and long walks for now. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm auditioning for love. I'm just showing up as I am. And you know what? That's enough. Because sometimes, losing the person you thought you couldn't live without is exactly what saves you. And if Dana ever wonders how I'm doing, she won't need to ask. She'll hear it in the silence. I'm finally okay.